Hello my friends, Thomas with Alpha Concepts, and today we're going to talk about malfunctions with a pistol. It can happen, and with a semi-automatic pistol there's a few things that we're going to work you through. We're going to show you the misfire, the hangfire, the squib, the double feed, and the stovepipe, and we're going to teach you how to deal with all of those malfunctions. That's coming up right now. All right, before we talk about the malfunctions and how to deal with them, let's talk about what malfunctions are, how they can happen. Number one, we can have a misfire or a hangfire that is caused by a defect in the ammunition. A misfire could also be caused by a defect in the firearm. You could have a weakened springs, a very dirty gun, a broken firing pin. I've seen all of that happen. That can cause a misfire. So a misfire essentially is a click when you want to bang. A hangfire is a click, and then you'll have a pause, and then a bang. And there's videos on the internet of these hangfires happening, and they can be potentially dangerous. And then you have a squib load, and a squib load is a less than normal pressure. Perhaps the primer went off and not the powder, or perhaps only some of the powder burned because maybe some of it got wet or something like that. So there's obviously a danger to the squib load because you may have an obstruction in the barrel. We're going to talk about dealing with all three of those things, both on the range as well as in real life. All right, so we're dealing with a Glock 34. It's completely clear. We're just using dummy ammunition to simulate some of these malfunctions, and we're going to roll on through and show you how to deal with that, again, both on the range as well as in real life. If I've come out and I've got a, listen closely, click instead of a bang. Well, the two worst things that you can hear when you're dealing with guns, the worst one is a bang when you want to click, but the second worst one is a click when you want to bang. Notice my finger immediately came off the trigger. Now, if we listen to the rules of the NRA and their NRA basic safety, basic pistol class, it says to take your finger off the trigger, keep the gun pointed down range, and count to 30. That doesn't work in a gunfight. There's no timeouts in a gunfight. So what do we have to do? Well, we do what's called an immediate action drill. So just to go ahead and reset that, firing pin so we can get another click. Immediate action drill is, what did I do? I got the click, and as soon as I got the click, I just hit that magazine, and then I racked the slide. Again, look at it from this side. I just hit that magazine, and then I do that bear paw technique where I bounce my hand against the serrations, my fingers against the serrations on the other side, making sure not to block the ejection port, and I rack that round out. That's a bad round. I don't know if it's a hangfire. I don't know if it's a misfire. I do not care. Some people will say roll the gun to the side and allow gravity to help you when you rack it. That's your choice. That's up to you. You can do that. You don't have to. If your gun is operating properly, it's going to eject that round, no problem. So tap the magazine to make sure that that magazine is fully seated, because if you have an improper grip, sometimes your thumbs can kind of sort of get in the way of, if you see real closely here, that magazine is out a little bit. It's not all the way in. We tap it to make sure it's fully seated, and then we rack it, because if there's a bad round in there, we need to get it out, or maybe there's no round in there because the magazine wasn't fully seated, all right? And those are something that if we train to do that, and you can do what's called a ball and dummy drill, which is where you mix some of those snap caps up with your regular ammunition, and as you're training, and we can see it lock back because it was the last round. So tap rack, an immediate action drill, that's going to fix a misfire, that's going to fix a hangfire. If it is a hangfire and it goes bang as that round is sitting there on the ground, it is nothing more than a firecracker at that point. What do I mean? The firearm, the chamber, contains that high pressure when the round goes off, and it's going to funnel that to the path of least resistance, which is the open barrel. But since there is no chamber, there is no barrel, it's just going to pop because the thin wall brass case is not going to take the action of the explosion. When you're on the range, if you want to listen to the book says if you have a click instead of a bang, keep your finger off the trigger, keep it pointed down range, count to 30, make sure the firearm is clear. Personally, what I do, tap, rack, I get that bad round out. I don't care if it's a misfire or hangfire. That's an immediate action drill. That's how we deal with a click instead of a bang. So the next malfunction that we might find ourselves having to deal with is a double feed. Double feed can happen Sometimes you've got a dirty firearm. Sometimes the extractor might be worn, hasn't pulled the round out of the chamber. Whatever the case may be, a double feed means that 2 bullets, essentially 2 rounds, are trying to get themselves into the chamber, and we know only one can fit at a time. If you want to practice to set yourself up for a double feed, we take a snap cap, we drop it right there into the chamber, then we're going to insert our magazine and we're going to release the slide. And you can see right here we've got 2 rounds trying to go into one chamber, okay? So if I've got 2 rounds trying to go into one chamber, what can I do? Well, if I've got a click instead of a bang, tap, rack, but that's not going to do anything, okay, because it's still locked in place. So now what do I need to do? So I know my brain is trained. Whenever I have a click instead of a bang, tap, rack. Well, that's not going to work, so now I'm going to lock it to the rear. I've got to lock it to, I don't have to, but if I don't lock the slide to the rear, I'm going to cause damage to that magazine and possibly might not even be able to get it out. I might be really fighting that. But if I lock it to the rear, I take all that tension off the round and the magazine comes right out. Now, if I only have 1 magazine and I'm not carrying a spare magazine, I need to retain this magazine. If I have a spare magazine, I can just let it fall to the floor, but I'm letting good ammo fall to the floor. So I'm going to retain the magazine. Now I need to rack it to get that bad round out. So I'm going to give it a couple good 2-3 racks. All right, and then I'm going to insert that magazine and I'm going to rack it again and re-engage if necessary. All right, we're going to set that up one more time. We're going to look at that in real time. All right, I've once again set this firearm up for a double feed. I come out, click instead of a bang, tap, rack, lock it, rip it, rack it, insert, rack. So with enough practice, you can get pretty proficient at that. And those types of malfunctions can happen. It's something that we need to train for. But you can see, you can deal with it real clear. So again, tap, rack, lock, rip, rack. Rip the magazine, rack, insert, rack. Okay? That is a double feed. Let's talk about a squib. If I'm firing the firearm and I have a bang, 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 pop, now, I might have a reduced muzzle flash, I might hear less sound, but realistically, I'm going to feel less recoil. I'm going to feel less force. Remember, for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. For all the force going that way, I have the same amount of force going that way, and that's what we call recoil, okay? You're going to feel less force. The danger is that the round could be trapped in the barrel. And if a round is trapped in the barrel and you fire again, you could have a catastrophic failure, which means that the gun blows up in your hand. That's obviously a bad day. On the range, stop firing immediately. Take the firearm apart. Ensure that it is clear. That's what the book says. You can put a dowel rod or a pen or something down the barrel to make sure that it's clear as well. That will work too. However, no timeouts in a gunfight. In a real world situation, what can you do? Well, you've got to make a decision. You're not going to ask the bad guy to stop. Of course, hey, if I say stop, leave me alone, and he does, that's great, but we're beyond that point if I'm firing rounds at him, okay? What are your choices? Well, I can't tell you what to do because I don't want the liability. Remember, if you fire another shot, the gun can blow up in your hand. I can only tell you what I would do. I am going to continue firing shots because the assumption is that I would not be firing my gun at another person unless my life was in danger. And so if I don't keep firing at him, if my life is still in danger, I'm willing to risk my hand knowing that the gun has a chance that it might blow up. I'm personally willing to risk my hand to save my entire life. Now you have to make your own choice because I don't want you calling me up saying, hey, I lost a couple fingers because I kept firing after a squib. I'm telling you, you got to make your own choice. On the range, stop firing immediately. Make sure the firearm is clear, period. In the real life world, you have to make a choice. What is the most likelihood that you're going to go home at the end of the day? And that's why I carry a gun, is because I want to go home at the end of the day. So what's my most likely choice that I'm going to go home at the end of the day? Well, you could run, but hey, if running was an option, I would have ran in the first place. I've had students say, throw the gun at them, but that's probably not the best choice because there might not be an obstruction in the barrel and you just gave them a gun to use against you. You can beat them in the head with the gun. That's a choice as well. There are no good choices when you have a squib load, but you're going to have to pick one. So you make a decision what's going to work for you. All right, the last malfunction I want to show you is what we call a stovepipe. And we can see that that round is sticking out. It has not fully ejected. Quite often, this is actually due to what we call limp wristing, which is a loose grip. If you have a nice tight grip, the chances of having a stovepipe reduce very, very greatly, okay? So a proper grip is very important. We've covered videos on how to properly grip the firearm. Go check that out if you're interested. When we have a stovepipe, some people will say, well, identify and then all you have to do is sweep your hand. And that works, absolutely. But I just want to train my brain to do one thing. If I've got a click instead of a bang, I'm going to tap rack that we already showed you. So I come out, click, tap rack. And that's going to fix a stovepipe. It's going to fix a misfire. It's going to fix a hang fire. So I don't need to think about, oh, what do I need to do? Bam, tap rack is going to solve a misfire, hang fire, and a stovepipe. If you do sweep your hand, then what you want to use is, you want to use this part of your hand, right here, closer to the knuckle. You don't want to use your fingertips. You've got more flex there, and it's easier that you might sweep off. So you want to use this hand, the knuckle right here to sweep, not the fingertips to sweep, okay? But again, tap rack is going to fix that just as well. So that's just the way I rock with it. I tap rack because one solution fixes 3 problems. So that's how we're going to deal with malfunctions with a semi-automatic pistol. We talked about the hang fire, we talked about the misfire, we talked about the double feed, and we talked about the stovepipe. If you found this video helpful, please, again, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And if you want to put some of these techniques into practice on the range, I want you to sign up for a defensive pistol class. We've got defensive pistol level 1, 2, 3. We've got a low light defensive pistol. We've definitely built upon the skills, kind of like a ladder, climbing from one rung to the next, making you the best shooter that you can be. Check out our website at alphaconcepts.com to learn more about our defensive pistol classes. Or hey, if you're not ready for defensive pistol, we've got basic pistol and concealed carry classes as well. So again, check out the website, sign up. As always, everybody, be armed, be trained, and be alpha.